Something unbelievable just happened. Closer than you realize. Your quiet street, your trusted neighbor, your everyday peace. But then came the silence, the kind that only follows a divine whisper. The police arrived quietly. No sirens, no warnings. But what they discovered shifted the entire street's energy. The man next door, the one who always smiled, waved, helped with groceries, was hiding something that made even seasoned officers freeze. He didn't answer the door. They broke it down. What they found was not just criminal, it was spiritual warfare. Inside, hidden behind ordinary walls, was a room, unlisted, unmarked, invisible to the naked eye. But once uncovered, it told a story of obsession, darkness, and a plan that never reached the light of day. Burned papers, locked drawers, a box beneath the floorboards, photos, documents, a list of names, and there, circled in red, your name. The officers stopped. The air changed. It wasn't a case anymore. It was personal. You, the one who smiled at him. You who lent a hand. You who heard footsteps but shrugged them off. He was watching, for years. Surveillance monitors still played footage of your street, your routine, your clothes, the time your lights turned off, all noted in obsessive detail. Receipts for gear no normal household needs. A journal that grew darker with every entry, and a second room, secret, soundproof, and still active. Archangel Michael says, "Heaven intervened just in time. You were marked, but never touched. You were watched, but shielded. The moment danger grew too bold, the divine signal was sent. Behind a painted-over wall, they found it. A chair, a screen, a notebook beside it. Inside, your habits, your schedule. Notes like soon and ready. It wasn't just observation, it was preparation. And then the final box, locked with triple latches, was opened. Inside were IDs, rings, paper scraps from people long gone. Some were missing persons, some were never even reported missing. The horror wasn't just what he did, it was how close he came to finishing it. And you? You were at the center of it all, and had no idea. But your spirit knew. That unease around him, that chill, that gut feeling. You weren't paranoid. You were being protected. The officers whispered, this wasn't his first time. But now, it's his last. He spoke only once in custody, whispered your name, stared at the wall, as if he could still see you through it. Archangel Michael says, your life was being written into someone else's madness. But now the pen is snapped, the page is burned, and your name is etched in protection. They brought you a folder, your name marked on it. Page after page of how closely you were followed. Photos you never knew were taken. Voice recordings from somewhere near your window. Private conversations. Sacred moments. Violated. The officers said, you need to see this. You were more involved than you know. You trembled, but not with fear, with the weight of how close it came. They shut it all down. The network, the devices, the dark digital trail, and then they told you the truth. This was not a lone act. There is someone else. Out there, still watching. But this time, you're not alone. The area is under surveillance. You've been entered into National Protection Protocol, and your name is now listed under Survivor. Your testimony? It matters. You're not just a witness, you're a key. The courtroom will hear the story, not just of his crimes, but of your survival, of how light crushed the dark, of how prayers created a shield no evil could pierce. You'll be asked to speak, but only if you want to. You don't have to be afraid. What once watched you now waits to hear from you. And heaven is still watching, this time with swords drawn. Archangel Michael says, "You are no longer being hunted. You are now honored. The enemy failed. The storm broke. And now your story will awaken others before it's too late. Your strength has already testified. Your silence held weight. And now your voice will carry justice. The neighborhood may change. Your trust in the world may shift. But your spirit? Your spirit has grown sharper than ever before. You've been promoted, from watched to watched over, from silent target to loud testimony, from victim to vessel of divine protection. Let this be the final truth. Your light was too strong, your destiny too guarded, your story too important, and no shadow will ever touch you again. The street remains quiet, but it's no longer the same kind of quiet. It's the stillness that follows a storm. Porch lights stay on longer. Children play a little closer to home. People look each other in the eye now, not just to greet, but to know. One morning, you receive another letter. This time not from a court or agency, but from someone anonymous. No return address. Just your name in elegant cursive on the front of a cream envelope. Inside is a single sheet. No threats, no accusations. Just a line that reads, "You weren't supposed to be the one who got away." You hold the paper with trembling fingers, but your spirit doesn't shake. Not anymore. Because what once would have paralyzed you now only proves how much you've grown. The letter is turned over to authorities. They're already tracking the handwriting. Every word you once read in fear is now evidence. Power has shifted. In the weeks that follow, a new system is installed in your home. Discreet, advanced, government-funded. You're no longer just a civilian. You're an asset, protected, watched over. There are new patrols on your street. Not obvious, but intentional. Cars that pause just a little longer. Lights that flicker once and then hold steady. A signal. The detective who stayed late on your case comes by again. This time, not for questions, just to thank you. "You know," he says, "in my entire career, I've never seen a case unravel like that. Like something intervened." He doesn't need to say it. You both know. It wasn't just luck or timing. It was intervention. Divine, deliberate, unstoppable. And then one day, it happens. You're invited to a closed session, not public, not televised. Behind thick walls in a federal building, you speak to a panel. Not lawyers, not press, specialists, lawmakers, security analysts, people who deal with threats most never hear about. They don't just want your story, they want your insight. What you noticed, what you felt. The instincts that warned you before evidence ever appeared. Because your survival wasn't just a miracle. It was a case study in divine timing and human discernment. At the end of the session, one of the officials, a woman with steel in her voice and softness in her eyes, says, "You're not just a witness. You're a survivor who flipped the script. From that day on, you're part of something new, quietly, honorably. You get messages from people whose lives have been touched by your testimony, victims who finally feel seen, advocates who feel reinvigorated, officers who say your voice reshaped their approach to threat recognition. You walk lighter, not because the weight is gone, but because you know how to carry it now. The house next door? It gets sold, renovated, painted over in brighter colors, but it will never be what it was. The ground has memory, but it also has redemption. What was once a den of watching is now a symbol of seeing and surviving. Years from now, someone will hear part of your story and ask you, "Weren't you scared?" And you'll answer with a calm that makes them pause. "I was never alone long enough to be afraid." Because now you know, when darkness whispered your name, heaven answered louder. A few months pass. The dust settles, but the atmosphere never returns to what it was. You've changed. The world has too, even if it hasn't quite caught on yet. You're invited to speak at a private conference for victims of stalking and psychological manipulation, survivors from all walks of life. Not everyone speaks. Some just listen, clutching their notebooks like lifelines. But when you step onto the stage, there's a quiet that ripples through the room. Not silence, but attention. Reverence. You don't start with the horror. You start with the knowing. How you felt watched before you ever saw eyes. How the air thickened before danger arrived. How peace left long before the facts showed up. And that, right there, becomes your gift. You're not just sharing your story. You're translating intuition into language others can finally name. People come up afterward, tears in their eyes, saying things like, "I thought I was crazy. No one believed me. I didn't even know it was real until you said it out loud." And somewhere in that sea of faces, there's someone who doesn't belong. You notice them the way only a survivor can. They don't blink often, don't clap. Their clothes are just slightly wrong for the venue. And when people crowd you afterward, they don't leave. They watch. You act normal, calm. But inside, you file every detail like a puzzle piece. Because now you don't freeze when danger enters a room. You map it. Later that night, back in your hotel room, there's a knock. You peek through the eye hole. It's not them. It's the woman from the panel. The one with the voice like flint and silk. She doesn't say much, just hands you a folder, thick and sealed. "We ran the handwriting. It came back interesting." You wait until she leaves to open it. Inside are pages, photos, names, a network. You weren't just being stalked, you were being studied. The man next door was just one node in a larger design, a collector of data, behavior, routine, and you were the anomaly, the one case where the subject reversed the pattern. At the end of the file is a name, not one you recognize, but one that matters. The accomplice, the one who wrote the letter. And next to that name, a red stamp, missing. They're still out there. But this time, the fear doesn't paralyze you. It sharpens you. You realize something unsettling and powerful. This isn't over. But you're not scared of the unknown anymore. You've become fluent in it. And the person who once hid behind curtains and double locks, She's now the one others call when their lights start to flicker. You don't sleep that night. Not because of fear. Not anymore. You lie awake because a realization is crystallizing. A map forming behind your eyes. Every detail, every red flag you ignored, every gut feeling you brushed off, it all fits now. There was always more than one, always a system. You begin to dig, quietly, carefully. The woman from the panel becomes an unexpected ally. She works in a private sector, off the books, off the grid. She calls it pattern tracing. You call it justice. Your life changes again. No more hiding, no more waiting for footsteps outside your door. You train, learn, rewire the trauma into a skill set. You become fluent in subtle movements, linguistic cues, back-channel tech. And through it all, you build a second life. Quiet but vigilant. A life with purpose. And then, one day, it happens. You find them. Not the one who watched you. He's long gone. But the other one. The one who wrote the